Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bees in a Pod. I'm your host, Mo,
And I'm co-host Mash.
and we're here today with our first recording of the season with Dr. Marta. Marta, introduce yourself.
Thank you. Dr. Marta sounds very funny. Hi everyone. My name is Marta. I am a researcher at the University of Natural Resources and Life Sciences in Vienna, in Austria. And I was here, or I am still, a visiting researcher at the University of Surrey in the UK, southern from London. And I do my research about democratizing the food system, and I was here with an Austrian fellowship in 2022 and 23, doing some research in Central East London, and so focusing on Southwark and Tower Hamlets in community initiatives working with food.
Nice. And so let's kind of get into why food, why in this kind of element like food growing and food democracy. Where did this all kind of first start?
Ooh. Well, food, I studied environmental sciences, and it was a very interdisciplinary study. So we had a lot of natural sciences, but also politics, sociology, and all kind of these courses. And I was very interested in this intersection between people and nature, and not so much focusing only on the natural science part of it. But okay, if we want to transform something, we need the people, right? And that's how I got into my master's in organic agriculture. And that's how everything started, with the topic of food. I was very into alternatives in the organic agricultural system. And then in my PhD, it was about food in Vienna and how to transform the food system in Vienna to make it more sustainable. And when I was doing this, I got really into the topic of democratization and how to do this. But I was studying it more from food systems actors' perspective, so more like the retailers, the politicians, this kind of actors. And I was missing a bit the community part, because I could see it was very important, but it was not part of my PhD back then. So when I got the opportunity to come here, I wanted to focus on this and to do it in an urban area. And I had a great opportunity to use London, which was very, very amazing.
Amazing. Give me 1 second. I've just got paranoid that I did not set the cameras. I'm pretty sure I did.
I saw you walking over to them though.
Go for it.
I'm gonna just double check.
This is going in our bloopers.
Yeah, no, I mean I'll keep this in.
Mm-mm.
It's like you've already gone to such an amazing start. I'm gonna be so upset. Okay, nice recorded.
So do you upload the videos as well, or how do you?
Yeah.
Or just parts? Okay.
No, the whole
Okay.
podcast. So he'll work on the editing.
I'll probably cut this as I'll zoom in on my face freaking out.
Yeah.
We'll continue.
Mm-hmm.
Ready, Mash? Oh, your headphones. Look at that quickly.
Here.
Okay, sorry for that blooper. So that's super interesting then. So why London in particular?
Well, I got the fellowship to work with Professor Roberta Sonino, who was based in Cardiff by the time I wrote the proposal. So I was actually supposed to go to Cardiff, but then she changed to the University of Surrey, which gave me the opportunity to do it about London. And I think it's been great because of the diversity of people, communities, and also the diversity of food initiatives, like you said, from fruit growing, but also community fridges, kitchens, all kinds of projects. So that was great.
Okay, so one thing kind of that you spoke about in your presentation here, as well as in your, what would you call it? Is this a book? Is this a report?
I call it a report.
A report. Okay, in your report, there's that kind of, you talk about that shift between community initiatives going from the state in terms of food growing and food security, from the responsibility going from the state to the people.
Mm-hmm.
can you kind of expand on that a bit and just talk about what the implications are for that kind of long term? Because where I think you mentioned it, like as a country, we have so many food banks, and this is, you know, one of the richest countries in the world.
Yeah.
London, the financial hub of the world. There's billions and trillions going through this, and I think someone told me recently that UNICEF or what's the, is it UNICEF or is it
Which one?
the it's like an international food provider. I'm not quite sure which one, but
Foul.
one of them was
Yeah.
providing food to people here in the UK. Like these are like food support initiatives and organizations that usually provide food aid to like war-torn countries or maybe poorer, less developed countries. But they're
What,
here.
they had to support
They're
us.
here.
Wow.
So if you don't mind, like if could you kind of dive into what the implications are for this and why maybe it's happening?
Yeah, sorry, I got a bit of a cold. Well, that is a very
It's a loaded one.
it's a loaded one.
Yeah.
Good first question. Well, maybe let's go a step back.
Yeah.
And when I did my research in Vienna, I did not see, like, there is one food bank in Vienna, of course, but there is not such a big issue of food insecurity. It is there, but it's not so big. So when I came to the UK for the first time 2 years ago, and I went to London and came to London, I was amazed, also a bit sad about the situation, that there's so many people that are not accessing food, that don't have access to food. And so it was very interesting for me to see that these food banks, that they are not from the state, that they are private, that they're trusts, or that they are run by communities, like community fridges that are turning into food banks without a referral right now. I mean, they are supposed to be against food waste, but because so many people need food, some of them are really acting as food banks and providing food. And so and then I got really into these topics. So I was doing a bit of research on this and how the neoliberalization of the country has moved these responsibilities from the state to the companies. And because the companies are not really solving the problem, then the communities are doing it for them. So this is an incredible development, that it's decades. It's not just, it didn't happen from one day to the other. And what I think, I see 2 points, right? You have the responsibility of the state to take care of the people and to provide food, because it's supposed to be the right to food. And so, for example, in other countries, it's the people expect that from the state. I saw here, at least in this part of London, that the people don't expect that from the state or from their councils, and they just take it on their own hands, which has developed also this very strong feeling of community and responsibility of communities, which is also positive, I guess. Also this work of really communities taking their time to help others. But it is also so unsustainable because people do it in their free time. They are dependent on funding and also donations, because some of the food is or most of the food is surplus food from supermarkets and restaurants and other companies. So I don't think it is a very sustainable system, but I think the positive thing is this empowering of communities, and that they are trying to really support each other and do it together, and not having the responsibility from the individual point of view, but more from the community point of view. So I think that is a positive thing. So I don't want to say everything is negative.
Yeah, of course. Like I was gonna jump in, but I'm glad you said it. That there is this whole. It's super interesting with this whole neoliberalization of, particularly when it comes to food and yeah, like it's odd. Like you said, I appreciate there's definitely kind of good and bad there, but a lot of people like that we kind of talk about how it's almost like there's an opposite going on, where the state is trying to back away from the kind of responsibilities like food. But then also a whole neoliberal state is meant to be a small government. But this government is kind of getting bigger and bigger in terms of their reach and where they're impacting policies and bringing kind of things into tightened controls and regulation.
Mm.
So it's a bit of a weird one because they're trying to follow all these neoliberal ideas where it's like, oh, leave it to the private sector can do this, the people can take care of that, but then at the same time the reach is getting bigger. So yeah, no, it's an interesting kind of place. But yeah, do you reckon that without this kind of, how they say, like, from a wildfire life grows, do you think that these kind of community initiatives would still happen even without some of this struggle that we're facing as a result of lack of government intervention? And also, what is the limit of when, because I know government, rather than use the word government, like maybe if we talk about kind of local authorities, because I would consider things like housing associations to be within that kind of, although they don't have legislative power, they still have a huge, I mean, they're effectively a pseudo arm of the government in the sense that they're providing, now because of the situation the housing is in, they are the housing arm of the government, because they have to provide a certain amount. If social housing only exists if they build it effectively right now. Yeah, so do you reckon we can still do these initiatives without us being in this kind of tight situation? I don't know if that question makes sense.
Yes, it does. I think you would still have a lot of community initiatives, but maybe the focus would be somewhere else. Like many of my interviews, for example, were saying they would like to really focus more on this democratization, for example, or a more political, having a more political agenda, or doing other kind of activities, more food growing or whatever. But because of the necessity that they see in their neighborhoods to provide food, they couldn't focus on that, and they were focusing more on providing food and trying to get as much food as possible for the people there. So they were really struggling between these two things and the needs of the people right now and the work that they would like to be doing. So I think they could really work more on other things rather than providing food. So I think it's possible. Yeah.
Did you ever discover what the shift was when it, like, I don't know if there was a moment where in like legislative or kind of policy where it shifted from a state responsibility to, because like you was talking about in terms of the state's responsibility for us, we have a social contract, right? Going down to neoliberalism, right? There's a social contract in place between us and the state, and they have kind of passed off that responsibility. Was there a moment where that, or a period of time maybe that started to happen, that we started to kind of move away from that?
Yeah. Well, I'm not an expert in the UK context, but from what I've read so far, it seems like when Margaret Thatcher was in power, she started this whole neoliberalization of the country. And even governments from right and left afterwards have been keeping this movement of more and more neoliberalization. So I would say it's the last decades.
Yeah, because even the last kind of big wave of Labour government under Tony Blair, supposedly left-wing, but it's still pushing. His whole famous thing was the PPP, the public-private partnership, which is neoliberalism, right? It's still it's still taking on the crown and the legacy of Margaret Thatcher, kind of moving on, and Reaganomics kind of passing on that wave through the world, the post-Soviet kind of, we can't go any further left. We have to. You know what I mean? This is what it looks like when state control goes too far. This is why we need a smaller state. People need to take care of themselves, pull themselves up from their bootstraps, sort of thing. So what would you say at the moment are the roles that local governments and housing associations play in either supporting or hindering the progress of these current food projects?
Yeah. Well, the housing associations, from what I've seen so far, they do provide some spaces, for example, for community growing or for food cooperatives, or also like these different kinds of projects, which is great that they do that. The only problem is that they usually do it like more short term because they might need the space for building. So that is a bit of an insecurity that these projects have, that they
Yeah.
may have to leave next year and they don't know. But what I've seen is that they get quite a bit of support from these housing associations, and that's very positive. And the council, well, it really depends on the borough. The boroughs that I've studied, most of them have food partnerships. These are like platforms of different actors that come together and try to make their local food system more sustainable and just. So depending on the area, the focus is different, and also the organizations that participate are different. That it could be in community organizations, charities, but also food actors. I've seen also religious groups representing different groups of people. And then the municipality or the council, sometimes it's inside or they work together with it, but from the outside. And I've seen that there's a lot of interest, at least on these kind of food partnerships in the boroughs that I've been working with. But of course, some of them can do more or less. They might get support, like for example in Southwark, they do have one person that is employed for this food partnership, and this is financed through the council. In others, they don't have these, but they might be able to influence a little bit of the politics that that are going on in the borough. But it's really, really challenging, even also for the council, because they have to work within the framings. So there's only so much that they can really do. So I think some of them are really trying, and it also depends on the people working there, if they're motivated and if they really believe in these kind of ideas. But so it depends on the people, the council, and the local situation.
So what's the barriers for these kind of councils and these powers to just fully support these initiatives? Like, is it just money? Is it plain and simple, we can't afford it?
Well, that is one of the reasons, of course. Money. It's always the funding. They don't have the money to fund them. They may not have time because they are so overworked, and they don't have time to have more issues in their agenda. Also, the councils and in general governments at all levels work very silo-based. So it's like health is here, the environment is here, I don't know, the economic part is here, and food is a very cross-sectoral topic. And so they sometimes struggle working together with different departments. So it's usually based maybe only in the environmental department or the health department, but they also need the others, and this is also a difficulty within the councils. And I've seen this not only here, but also in other countries. So it's a very typical barrier. Funding time, silo. And then, of course, the motivation. Like, you may have people very motivated in the council and they bring things forward, and you may not have this kind of motivation. And also sharing the ideas, the vision, the mission. This is also very important.
It's tough because when you start kind of looking at particularly these kind of issues that you pointed out, as kind of people that live in the borough, it almost feels kind of that's why we have to kind of go out to, I guess, do these initiatives, because we can't affect that, we can't help with that. And I don't know who can. I don't know if there is. I don't know if it's their problem to sort out, or if it's central government's problem to sort out. It's a doozy. It's a tough one.
I guess it's both. It's a little bit from above, a little bit
Yeah.
from below, and then see how to change. But of course, changing these institutions, it's quite hard.
So out of kind of all the places you've been to that you visit, because you visit quite a few community food initiatives,
Yes.
could you share like a success story of something that has had a kind of significant impact on this local community?
Well, I guess my favorite story is the one here in Tower Hamlets from the Women's Environmental Network, who got this very big funding from the National Lottery to move forward this project of Just Fact, where they have been really creating initiatives at the borough level, and they've been replicating them and really collaborating and working together to make this very tangible, and that you can really see. I mean, here, for example, the food cooperative that has been replicated from another one. and also developing the food partnership. So I think the Tower Hamlets is a good example of how they've been doing this a bit more systemically and really trying to work together and to have different initiatives and not only focus on one and that's it. So I always like to talk about this example. But of course, the money here was a big factor. I mean, not only the proposal that they wrote, and it's amazing, but without the money, they wouldn't have been
Yeah.
able to really develop the idea, probably.
It's an expensive borough, like where even though it's one of the kind of like most socioeconomically deprived kind of in London, it's still really expensive. Where we've got Canary Wharf just down there, we've got Bank down the road, we've got, you know what I mean, Tower Bridge down there. So we've got all the central London's not that far, you know what I mean. We've got all these hubs nearby, so it can be quite expensive to kind of get things done here. But yeah, now when is awesome. Women's Environmental, we absolutely love working with them, and yeah, the food co-op's been really interesting for us. Like you said, it was born from I think the first one that we kind of worked with was St. Hilda's.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, so they I think were they the first food co-op in Tower Hamlet, or at least on that kind of scale.
Yes.
Yeah, so we learned a lot from them. They supported us in setting it up, and us and Limehouse as well. And the kind of stories we get, we went on a trip with the residents the other day. We're gonna release a video for those watching Bees in the Wild. I was out there in my bee costume, following the residents. But we took some of our residents that shop at the food co-op to an organic farm called Organically.
Yes.
And it was awesome to kind of, it's like you said, it's there's two things going on there. It's like, yeah, the systemic kind of changes, setting the infrastructure in place, making sure that we're building and learning, and then the people factor, the community side, because you shouldn't just be a customer, right? There should be an element more to it, because you want to encourage others, like to, you know, you can set up a food co-op with your neighbors. Yeah, you can knock on your neighbor's door. You could do this. Knock on all your neighbors' doors. And, you know, if everyone's buying the same sort of thing, everyone's buying onions, everyone's buying potatoes, you can just order from a wholesalers together and get it so much cheaper than you would get at the supermarket. The only edge we have here is we're working with funders and funding to bring down the pricing even more, which is where, you know, you got an advantage here. So is there any kind of things you can share from us from like learnings that maybe we can take on from, were there any other food co-ops outside of Tower Hamlets that you visited, or were we the only ones?
I visited one food co-op, but they had it was more a consumers group, so the people just coming together to buy by themselves and coordinate. So it was not like here that it's coordinated by an organization, but they just coordinate themselves. They are volunteers. It is open to the public as well, so people can just come and buy there. But it is just run by the volunteers.
Is this the anarchist group?
Yeah, well, that's how they started in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that when I was listening to that, I thought that was awesome. It's a real kind of throwback to when these kind of ideas were a lot more kind of popular, and people weren't so kind of scared of throwing these terms around and these concepts.
Yes, I really like the history or the story of behind this food co-op. It started in the 80s with the squatting movement. They just squatted a building, and then they started this food co-op to challenge the supermarkets, right? The corporations to do it themselves. And it used to be, apparently, they told me, and they showed me pictures as well, much more anarchist, and like you would say, these posters with a lot of anarchist pictures and sentences like this, slogans. Now it's a little bit, it's not so anarchist and it's much more relaxed, but still you can feel it also because they share the space with an anarchist book cafe.
Oh, nice.
And also a bike shop where you can repair the bike yourself. That it's also like a group of people working there.
I always find it super interesting that, I don't know if you've noticed this, I've started noticing this because I've been going out to visit our partners a lot more. Anywhere where there's like a super left-wing presence, there's always some kind of bike shop or bike initiatives.
Really?
Yeah, I've noticed it. I don't know if you like if you kind of go out to Bethnal Green and Shoreditch, there's all these kind of super left-wing spaces and like, you know, you got socialist, anarchist, whatever, feminist spaces,
Mhm.
and there's always a bike thing somewhere. I don't know. Maybe it's all tied to the environmental element
I
of it.
guess, yeah.
Maybe it's the free. To be fair, the bike. I guess I'm kind of making it up here, but I guess the bike you can see as a symbol of that kind of freedom. You don't pay taxes on it. You don't have to pay insurance. There's no documentation of a bike.
Yeah.
So
You don't stop at red lights.
You should.
Oh, that's fascinating because yeah, when I did a bit of during my undergraduate degree, I wrote my dissertation on, it was the title was quite long. It was a critique of neoliberalism with a case study on education. And as part of that, I was trying to look at all these kind of different alternatives to neoliberal setups. And one thing, I've had two examples that were really interesting. One was anarchist Catalonia
Mhm.
and how they kind of structured things, which was super fascinating.
Mm.
And the others are, I think they're still about today, is the Zapatistas in Mexico.
In Mexico, yeah.
And at the farm, I bought some coffees that was it's from the Zapatista kind of cooperatives that they sell. Did you get any influences from these kind of, or rather, was that like could you draw any comparisons there yourself from what you're seeing here?
Oh, from the Zapatistas.
Yeah, I don't, or Zapatistas or Catalonia. I'm not sure how much you know about the topics. For me, it's a faded memory. I can remember bits and bobs of it now, but I do, yeah.
I know the Zapatistas. I know about the anarchists in Catalonia, but not so much about it. And of course, these ideas come from self-determination, self-management, and how to do it yourself, how to make decisions. Of course, these ideas are behind all these kind of initiatives. And also this idea of community at the center and community well-being instead of this profit maximization that we have now in our societies in the global north. So of course I see that we are trying to not copy that, because we used to have that in Europe and the UK a lot, and we still have it. So we are reinventing the things that we had. We are getting inspiration from projects like the Zapatistas, of course, but also others. So I do see some similarities between these kind of initiatives all around the world, but of course they are different depending on the political and social context.
Are you an onion lover? Are you a vegetable and fruit lover? See the size of this onion? This is a big onion. For those who are not watching, I'm holding a giant onion, a beast of an onion. And this onion's organic. And it's 50% of the price that you'll pay in an average supermarket. Now, how? How, do you ask? Where can I get this majestic, heavenly onion? Well, I'm glad you asked. We run a food co-op at our community centre, the Teviot Centre, Wyvis Street, E14 6QD, every Thursday, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Make the most of it. Come down. We have all kinds of fruit and vegetables. If there's something there that you want, you speak with our lovely staff members and they'll order that for you. They'll order it. They'll get it in. No problem. As long as it's grown. You know, we source everything from a local farm, as local as we can get to London. And it's all grown here. It's all British, great British produce. And it's all seasonal. So eat seasonally, eat clean, eat organic. At 50% of the price, organic food does not have to cost an arm and a leg anymore. It is no longer a middle-class luxury. Organic produce is for all through our food co-op every Thursday, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Teviot Centre, Wyvis Street, E14, 6QD. So, get in there. Make the most of it. And if you have any questions, drop us a DM. Give us a call. 0207 987 5764. info@leadersincommunity.org. Let us know if there's something you want. Let us know. And if you're watching, you might be peeking. Oh, what's this, merch? Is the merch available? Not yet, but if you want it, you let me know. Look at this, Bees in a Pod hoodie. That's right. Anyway, thank you, and onward to the rest of the show. Mash, you've been very quiet. I'm gonna let you ask a question.
Well, let's talk
So
about
I
food. I'm just thinking
we have
about
like a
my lunch.
we have like a bunch of questions, but I'm not really sticking to them too strictly. I'm just trying to pick up on what we're saying. But Go on, Mash. You've been quiet. Pick a question.
Where you at the moment?
I'm all over the place, man. I'm whatever kind of jumps at me. I've yeah
Jumping around.
yeah maybe this one.
Let's go with that one. So, what advice would you give to someone? What advice would you give to someone who wants to start a community food project in their local area?
Wow, that's a tough one. I would say think about the focus that you want. Do you want to do food growing? Do you want to do a food cooperative? So what kind of project? And then go and get inspiration from the people in your area or also broader, because there's already so many projects going on. So you don't have to start from scratch. I think you can learn from what others have already done. So that would be my first step. And then depending on what you need, if you need space, if you you probably need some money. So try to get some funding, or try to get also, if you are alone, you need people. You cannot do that alone. So you need to get motivated people who believe in the idea that you have, the vision that you have. So the people is even more important than money. You need people, and then you can start working and trying to find the space. You sometimes can get the space for free or for a peppercorn lease, as you call it here in the UK. So that might be not so difficult. But I think inspiration and people are two key things that you will need.
I wanted to. I've complained about this thing, Mash. You might recognize my complaint coming up.
Yeah.
Anyone that's been involved with any kind of environmental or food related thing, I've raised this complaint because I'm seeking. I've not got an answer yet, so don't. It's okay if you don't have an answer for this. Why is it that governments, local governments, housing authorities, whatever, plant things out and about that are not food related? Like, why do we not have fruit trees instead of these random, or like, herb bushes? And like where I live, we have these I've got blocks after blocks kind of next door to each other, and along the middle there's like somewhere where cars can drive, and then they've got like these big concrete things with a random tree in it. And I was thinking, like, what those, there's so many of them. Those could have been beds, those could have been something. It's a random tree. You can't eat anything from it. Is there a reason? Is there a reason why? I'm so frustrated about
Yeah, he's right about that complaint. This is like the fourth time he's brought it up now.
It's just
but it's a very good.
it
very good
frustrates
point.
me.
Yeah.
There's so much land, so many spaces.
You've got like you're redeveloping an area. Sorry, I'm really this is something I'm really angry and passionate about. Why you're spending these millions and hundreds of millions into redeveloping areas, and then you just plant a random bush.
Yeah.
Like, I was in the Battersea power station when it first opened up. I went to go have a look at it, and I see the housing around it, and I see again useless bushes. I'm like, they look pretty,
Yeah,
but
it might be an aesthetic thing there.
yeah, but you're telling me you can't find something edible that also looks aesthetic. Anyway, do you have an answer?
Well, I
Have a
know
guess?
there are a lot of people working on these and edible solutions, or there was even a European project focusing on edible city solutions, and there's a lot of projects like working on this also here in the UK. And I'm not an expert on this topic, but I understand what you say. And what I've heard so far is always like, yeah, if you plant a tree, like a fruit tree, then you always, if the fruits are on the floor, then they will get bad, and then it smells, and it's so difficult to maintain. And so this is one of the reasons why they seem not to do it. Also then vandalism, that they say that if you do plant, then the people will just take it and they will not take responsibility and these kind of excuses. But I'm not really like into the topic. And of course it's also important to have other plants that are not only edible plants, like flowers for the bees. I mean, come on, you should know this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not an expert on this topic.
Man, I don't buy any of those excuses. Me and my brother went to Sevilla, and there were like orange trees planted in the road.
You cannot eat those.
You can't.
No.
Okay, but still,
They are very how is it called? It's not sour, but you can make this. You can make marmalade out of it.
you can still do something with
You
it.
could do something, but people don't usually do it. I don't
Nah,
know.
I've
I
never
lived in Granada for 4 years, but you can also
Yeah.
find lots of these orange trees, and the tourists would always try to eat it, and you would see their faces like, ew.
I definitely wasn't one of those people.
I mean, yeah. If you plant orange trees, then why not the normal oranges that you can eat? So
yeah. But no, okay. I can see it, but man, there's
It
something.
might be more of a maintenance thing as well, because you know that if you
It depends.
once you do plant and establish something there, you know that you've got to then look after it. And who
But it
do you get
depends.
to
Like
look
we've
after
got
it?
we've got a rosemary bush outside. I don't know if you've noticed. There's a huge rosemary bush that basically takes care of itself. Once you plant a rosemary bush, it's like it's not going anywhere.
yeah.
Mint. Yeah, I mean, mint is not. We started one little mint thing there. Now it's everywhere in our garden.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's just a pet peeve of mine. I'm very annoyed about it. And yeah,
There is in Lambeth, there is the edible network. I don't remember edible Lambeth or something. That's a network that are trying to work on this topic. So you should look at them.
we should go chat to them.
Yeah.
Lambeth, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we gotta reach out to these
Yeah.
guys. I've got a bone to pick. I need to find a solution. So kind of taking it back to your report. How do these kind of initiatives challenge traditional economic models, and how do they offer us new ways of thinking about food consumption and food production? You might have touched on it a bit, but kind of
Yeah, I wanted to say it's. I guess the main point is what I said before, that they put the community well-being at the front of everything. So it's about the communities. It's about making food accessible to everyone, or at least more accessible in any way that they can. And also to, for example, if it's a growing project, try to make it more not only the food to make it more accessible to people, but also the spaces that in a city like London you may not have, especially if you live in a flat. So that to provide these kind of spaces, and also maybe to grow your own food from your cultural background, so you can cook culturally appropriate dishes that you may not find the ingredients in your local area. That was also always pointed out. But I think that how they challenge the economic system is really having this community at the center and people, and also the sustainability of the planet in many cases. So trying to maybe have more organic food, or at least trying to have fresh vegetables and fruits, and also politically trying to push these ideas forward and try to change something, even if it's really little at the very local scale.
Do you ever see like these kind of systems, if they keep going, posing like a serious threat that not to go down any kind of conspiracy route, but like a serious threat that then the status quo, the government, these institutions that are in place would be like, okay, this is starting to hurt our pockets now, or do you ever think it will, like, that we can challenge it to that extent, or do you think like I'm taking it kind of, I'm going the wrong way here, I'm thinking about it the wrong way?
I think they present an alternative to the conventional food system, or how we get our food and how we think about food. And I think they can have implications on how everything develops. But the food system tends to then get those ideas and develop them within their framework. So it's really difficult to really change it, at least right now. Of course, it's not that it's been like this forever. It's been like this for some decades, but it was differently some decades ago. So it does change and it does develop. And I think these projects are very important to push some kinds of developments, and also offering this alternative that I was talking about. I wanted to say, and yeah, for example, what I saw in Vienna, when the we also have food cooperatives, more like this kind of consumers coming together and buying together. And it was, I think it was 10 years ago or so that it started slowly in the country, and now in Vienna we have many of them. I don't remember the name now, but it got so big so quick that they started to say, hey, okay, the supermarket started complaining,
Wow.
and so they
Wow.
had to regulate it. So there was something there. I think now it has stopped a bit, and because it's volunteering work, it's always like goes up and
Yeah.
down.
Mm.
But it did something. It did move a little bit. Like, okay, let's have a look at these people. What are they doing?
Wow.
Man, do you
It
ever
feels like a bit of like competition, I think, for them.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, because I was gonna mention that in because you see like food banks, food co-ops, and so on. A lot of them sometimes are kind of back to back or really close together. Like even here,
Mm.
just opposite us, there's a food bank on a certain day, and then I think on the same day actually as us. And I was just thinking, does it feel like a sort of competition in some way? It's like kind of restaurants when they open up next to each other. You always kind of feel like you're just competing for the same audience, for the same people to come to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking, oh
No,
yeah,
it's
it
interesting
doesn't feel like.
because with us on the other food co-op, we've developed, I like to hope that other organizations adopt the same thinking. But with us in the Limehouse Food Co-op, we buy each other's leftovers, or we've got a system so that we minimize waste by sharing. Like if we have something excess that the Limehouse Food Co-op wants, we just sell it onto them
Oh,
so
nice.
that they can then make use of it and they can sell it, because we've even worked with them to kind of time it with the days, because we have a bigger customer base than they do. So we were like, okay, we'll do it on Thursday, you guys do it on Friday, or was it the day before, Wednesday and Thursday? Either way, we worked it out so that it kind of makes sense and it works out.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, because you were saying now with the food banks, I don't think you compete with food banks, because for food bank you need a referral. It's a very different. And I mean, food banks have been criticized for actually maintaining the current system, because they just take the surplus food from supermarkets and give it to the people who cannot afford it.
Yeah.
So that is very yeah.
Yeah, the whole I'm just trying to think back at a point when you were talking about the government in Vienna stepping in with the people. Oh yeah, so is there like a fear that, because one thing that I've noticed, especially with I don't know if it's a nature part of the nature of capitalism, where it has to change and shape itself to fit the needs of the consumer, obviously. So now we're in the age of every company needs to care about something, right? They're social activists now, because the consumers choices in terms of who they're buying from has changed. And so it's an interesting, because there is a reaction there. And so, corporate social responsibility is definitely, top of the list, is enforceable, and people do care. People stop buying if a company doesn't stand for something, even if it's just in a superficial way. Do you think that maybe we're looking at, maybe down the line, if these initiatives keep growing, that the food system will react and almost try and imitate what we're doing? But like with these kind of, these companies that might do, like the best example is during Black Lives Matter, right? When that was going on, all these companies were in support, like, oh, we stand in solidarity, but they didn't change a single policy. They didn't start any initiatives. They didn't put any money, like, they're lobbying all these kind of governments to change all these policies that will make their pockets fatter, but not in this kind of sense. But they'll put out a post about it. They'll get, Pepsi will get
They'll
Kylie
follow
Jenner.
the trend.
Yeah, Pepsi will get Kylie Jenner to put a Pepsi in a police officer's face for Black Lives Matter. But yeah, but do you see that maybe potentially happening? And I don't know what that would look like, like as the trying to copy a food co-op kind of system or food growing.
Yeah, I see. I mean, this is also something that I developed a bit more in one of my articles. The report is based on, and how capitalist systems really try to, if they see a threat, they try to either eradicate it or imitate it. And so, and I mean, we've seen it, we call it the conventionalization of organic food. That organic was at the beginning a very innovative, radical idea of working with nature. And then it just became part of the supermarket. And now, so that's why now in some countries or in some places, they start talking about agroecology as a more radical idea, even if it's more or less the same, but they appropriate it because the supermarkets appropriated the word organic. They prefer to use agroecology. So this happens, for example, in Spain or in other European countries. I've seen this as well. So this is an example of how they did it. And I mean, there are some supermarkets that are cooperatives, like in Switzerland, there is one, or in some places, I think here, Waitrose, for example, the workers are shareholders.
Yeah.
So they do have a little bit of some of
Yeah.
them. There are some examples because supermarkets started from cooperatives.
That's right.
So that's,
Yeah, that's right. It's interesting how capitalism got hold of them. They started seeing the money and they're like, oh, actually, maybe we don't need the workers.
Yes. Well, there is one in the US. I think it's called Publix or something like that.
Okay.
If I remember right, where the workers own the supermarket and they are the ones. I don't know exactly the details how they do it, but I know it's owned by the workers only.
Have you heard of so take it back to that farm that we went to organically? I don't know if you've heard of them.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, they're awesome. So when we went there, I found out that they are kind of cooperative. They're a cooperative, so all their workers own a kind of part of that. So they have a flat level system. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to go off memory because I was trying to jump back and forth. But it's a flat level system. They all have a kind of share in the company, and they all kind of everyone does their bit. So there's no CEO per se. There's more kind of no matter what you do, you're contributing something, and they're huge. That like I wish you would. We need to take a trip down there. The space is massive. The space, and they produce a lot of food. Like they grow a lot of stuff. I think we're gonna get a whole bunch of garlic from them. They got this cool space where it used to be the manor kitchen. So a lot of the food scraps used to get dumped there, and it's the most fertile place in the whole farm. And so every year or every couple of years, they pick one thing to plant there, and then they maximize it. So this year was just all garlic, and I've never seen that much garlic kind of growing in my life. So apparently we're probably in a couple of weeks we're going to be getting garlic from there. So yeah, you'll see in the vlog. I'll share the video that I made going out. I stood in front of it.
Yeah, but there are many examples like that.
Yeah. So I guess the final thing before we wrap up is with your findings, how can we turn this into actionable steps? What can we do to actually put this in place, or are we already doing it?
Well, I guess my findings are based on what you are doing. So you are already doing it, of course. I'd say maybe talk more to each other, not only in the borough, but also with other boroughs, see what other people are doing, because that was for me very interesting to see how borough focus you work in London. I mean, London is a very big city and it makes sense, like a borough is like a city itself.
Yeah.
But I was, for me, very interesting to talk to people from different boroughs doing similar things, but they had never heard about the work of the others in the other boroughs. So that was interesting. And of course, work on a strategies on how to maybe in food partnerships, how to change things together, even at the borough level, London level, UK level. So how to do this in a more systemic way, more strategic way, but always working with the community. So I think you have to keep up the work you do with the communities, because it is really, really good, really amazing, and try to replicate and spread the word.
Awesome. Do you have any kind of final bits you wanna say? Any statements? Anything you wanna share, promote?
No, like I said, like this. I think that was a good final statement. I really, really enjoyed my research in London. I learned so much from the communities. This report is my attempt to give back something so that you maybe can use it or do something with it or get some funding. I don't know. Because I felt like I learned so much that I wanted to give something back. So it's been a pleasure working with all of you, and really, really nice. And if anyone has anything to ask or wants to get in touch, contact me.
Yeah. Awesome.
Nice.
Oh, Marta, thank you so much for your time.
Thank
really
you
appreciate
for
it.
inviting
And
me.
but obviously while you were in London, did you actually get to have a bit of a break, enjoy yourself here, or was it strictly just all kind of study related research?
No,
You're too busy.
I also had breaks and had time to go to the theater and enjoy the city.
Oh, nice. What'd you go watch?
Hamilton.
Oh, Hamilton.
And
nice.
Harry Potter.
Nice. Nice. How are those?
Oh, I'm a big Harry Potter fan. So
Yeah?
very good. I loved it.
I've been
Mm.
curious to go see that, man. I've heard it's good.
I really liked it, and Hamilton also. I'm not a
Yeah.
big fan of musicals, but I was very surprised. It was very nice.
I'm scared of going to see Hamilton because I like musicals, but I like musicals where they also talk in between.
Okay.
And I know Hamilton is just it's all singing like
But
towards
it's
it.
still a rap, so it's a
Yeah.
bit different, I guess.
It
than
is a
normal
bit.
Musicals.
It is a bit. It is a bit. Have you gone to see the musicals, Mash?
No, I mean, I think it's something that I'd be interested in going to watch.
My favorite that I've gone to see, which is a little bit controversial, is Book of Mormon.
I
Um,
don't know it.
It's a bit cheeky. It's not like don't take your parents unless you have that kind of relationship with them. It's a bit cheeky, but it's really funny.
Yeah.
It's from the makers of South Park, so you can
Oh, okay.
so you can imagine where
Yeah,
they're going at that. But anyway, let's keep it there. Thank you so much for your time. I really
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. This has been an awesome conversation. For those people watching, check the link in bio and the link in description for Marta's report. It's super insightful. Yeah, please do check it out.
Yeah.
I've been your host, Mo.
I've been your co-host, Mash.
You've been listening to Bees in a Pod. Please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, save, rate, whatever, everything.
Donate
Donate.
someone to the bees.
Yeah. Buy us some coffee, man. But no, honey. Buy us some flowers. Yeah, that's what we'll buy us some
Nice.
flowers. Awesome, Marta. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.